This is a HeadGum podcast.
Fake the Nation, episode 261.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about politics, and where we celebrate 5 whole years of podcasting. That's right. I'm your host, Nikeen Farzad, and I realized today as I was going over the topics for the show that it has been 5 years. Now, HeadGum was kind enough to celebrate our 250th episode a couple months ago, but here's another milestone. And today, we're going to ask, are celebrities ruining podcasting? Which felt like a good thing to talk about on a 5-year anniversary. What is happening with Texas and with Joe Biden? And finally, collective effervescence. What is it, and are you doing it? Today, I'm so excited by the panel. Today, folks, oh my God, we have with us an actor, a writer. You've seen him on shows like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and on Love, Simon. You have heard his podcast, of which he is the host, Soul Bomb. Folks, it is the wonderful Clark Moore. Hey, Clark.
Hi, Nikeen. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God! Thank you so much for coming on the show for the very first time. Hopefully not the last. If me and this next panelist don't fuck up your experience,
it has happened before.
It has. We literally can't talk about it, but it has happened before with like a ridiculously crazy high level person. Anyways,
I look forward to it.
So that voice you heard, and you know him from these very 5 years. My first question is going to be for Benari. He's a comedian. He is a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces. He's a part of a book that is out now that you should be immediately purchasing. It's called True War Stories. It's an anthology series, and you can read his piece in there. It's just so fantastic. And he's just one of my good friends in Los Angeles now, unfortunately, but in my mind, he's always in New York City. Folks, it's Benari Poulton.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here for all these momentous occasions. I feel like if there's a milestone in Fake the Nation, I need to be a part of it.
You need to be, and you are. And so this is my first question before we get into the podcast, is that, so we started this podcast the week after July 4th, which is where we are now. In 2016, it was put yourself back in that moment, Benari. You were probably on the second ever episode of Fake the Nation. So what was the vibe in the country July 2016 versus now?
Well, the insanity was that we were barreling towards Trump locking up the Republican, not like he had taken the takeover of the Republican Party, and basically, the mood was like, well, they imploded. There's no we're witnessing the end of the Republican control of all our branches of government. Let's just get ourselves to November because, now we can get a whole bunch of shit done. That, I feel like, was the mood in July.
Yeah. Very different. Let's
just sit back and they'll take care of just offing themselves.
And what's funny, too, is I fucking... I had this conversation with the people at the last podcasting network I was on, Earwolf, and I remember the wonderful Chris Brandon said to me, wow, you guys have been talking about Trump a lot. This was after the first few weeks, and he was dominating the news, right? It was he was dominating the news for the first time, in our lives, right? In that way. And I was like, yeah, it's a novelty and it'll be done in November. So let's just write it out and it'll be done in November. We won't have to talk about him ever again. You know what I mean? And I remember specifically saying, don't worry, come November, we won't have to talk about him ever again.
Yeah, there was absolutely that feeling of this will just go the way of the Macarena.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so batshit crazy, and we'll look back at this and just be like, oh yeah, remember that fad?
Completely.
That is now its own QAnon conspiracy subsect, which is apparently half of the voting population of the country.
I don't mean to
today.
laugh at QAnon, but that's so true. Thank you, Benari, for being with us since episode number 2. Thank you, Clark, for joining us now on episode number 261. Let us get into it with topic number 1. Okay, so podcasting since the pandemic has seen a distinct trend of celebrities. They have been launching podcasts by the droves, including the likes of Julie Andrews, Minnie Driver, Joss Stone, Paris Hilton, Rob Lowe, Jason Bateman, Sean Hayes, Will Arnett, Bruce Springsteen, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Snoop Dogg, Gwyneth Paltrow, Lena Dunham, Oprah, the Duke, and Duchess of Sussex. And the list goes on. But why does it go on? Are these celebrities ruining podcasting? And special thanks to Caleb. He's one of our loyal listeners who showed me an article in The Guardian that talked about this and gave us the idea for this topic. So what are your thoughts on whether or not, I guess, first, do you listen to any of these celebrity podcasts? I don't mean for you, we don't need to dump on celebrities whose affections we want and whose employment power we yearn for. But are there, what do you think of this trend?
I listen to a lot of them. I listen to a lot of podcasts in general, and I sort of am at being one of the people who did launch a podcast in that last year. I feel like I have to couch some of what I'm saying. I always say, though, we were developing our show for about 2 years prior because other things got in the way. We were trying to find networks or support, whatever. So it wasn't a 2020 idea. I feel like I have to say that. But
it's okay. We don't judge you. We don't judge you.
I come down on the side of being an avid podcast listener of like, more is more. It's almost like I have these dual thoughts in my head every single day. It's like, on the one hand, there are so many podcasts. I'm drowning in them. I could never possibly listen to all of them. And yet at the same time, every time I go to plug in my headphones to take my dog on a walk, there's no podcast to listen to. I've listened to all of them, right?
Yes, I have that same feeling.
So I listen to a lot of them. I listen to SmartLess, you mentioned. I listened to Lena Dunham's in the past. Mm-hmm. I love them. I say the more the merrier.
Benari.
Let me just give you a counterpoint. I do. I love listening to celebrities. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but one thing I will say, same situation as Clark. I'm actually in development, and we're launching a kids podcast soon through Tinkercast. Give a little plug. Be on the lookout for that. I'm sure people will hear about it on your show when it drops.
Indeed.
But we started developing it as TV, years prior. The pandemic sort of shifted a lot of resources and attention toward the podcasting space, which is how we ended up there. But we're doing a civic show for kids, and let me just tell you who the other people in the space. It was myself and my creative partner Mary who were developing the show, and then our competition was literally Lin-Manuel Miranda, Chris Nee, Barack and Michelle Obama, and Malala over at Apple. And then us. So it's like these are the people developing shows, and you can imagine who got first crack at all the networks and then their own podcast. And it's like, when you're sitting there and you're in a space where you're like, oh, my podcast or my idea is going to go up against Barack Obama. What else does the guy need? I mean, he's president of the United States. What do you come on my podcast? You don't need your own podcast. Save some for us, because the problem I have is celebrities are great to get people interested in listening to your weekly podcast. But when the weekly podcast is the celebrity, it just one-ups. You've now cut out any need for the regular folk. It's just all celebrity all the time.
Right.
And it also, that's a different world. It's fun to hear celebrity stories. It's great. I love listening to gossip and all the behind the scenes and, that high level. But they're not living a life like us.
No.
They're not dealing with things
I think
we have to deal with.
Yeah, and that I think is the one thing that I've noticed most about my own listening to celebrity podcasts. And I do listen to a lot. I have listened to a lot. I have to say that in recent months, I have bristled more and more at some of the celebrity podcasts, because there is an effort they make. The good ones make an effort to seem normal, right?
Right.
But we all know that they're very wealthy. Like, they're not normal. They're very wealthy. They have to wear sunglasses wherever they go, unless, bless their hearts, they live in New York City, in which case we don't bother them. But like, they're noticed, and it's a different type of life. They have, a lot of help and service and stuff that we just don't have. So the good ones make it seem like they're normal, and then but then it's like it's not a foolproof plan. Like, I can tell they're not normal. You know what I mean? I can tell that they live a haunted life, and so I get like a little frustrated, and then I'm sort of like, what am I listening to? I don't know. And then I get a little annoyed about what I'm listening to, because then I think, Bonari, again, like you're saying, it becomes the celebrity is the podcast. And so then you're hearing their stories there, and then you're hearing them on other podcasts because they're trying to boost their own numbers on other podcasts. Right. And so then everything just becomes about someone's first drama class in high school and the funny story. And then it's just like, I don't know. How many times do I need to hear that? I don't know. You know what I mean? I say this as a fucking person who's had celebrities on this podcast. Like, but and you are both, celebrities. And I'm talking about...
there's tiers,
there's
right?
Tiers, yes.
There's tiers. And
right.
I feel like what we've done away with now is like the launching pad. Like the podcast
right.
supposed to be like, I'm doing a podcast so that people get interested in me and then give me a job on, radio or television or this. And then, and then it used to be there was like, oh, I will start out here and then I'll move up to this tier. And now like movie stars and like actual ex-presidents of the United States are operating in the same space that we're operating. There's no more launching pad. There's no right. more, it's all just... you have to be A-list top tier to even do this thing that was supposed to be egalitarian
right.
and the great equalizer.
Yeah, right. And
the intimacy is sort of gone in that way.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, another thing, this Guardian piece called Are Celebrities Ruining Podcasting, that they pointed out is that an increasing feature of documentary podcasts is bringing in celebrities to narrate. So if it's like journalists who do all of this amazing reporting work and they put together this like really compelling like 8-part documentary piece, they'll get like Whitney Cummings or something to narrate all of this fabulous reporting, because they're worried that without someone like Whitney Cummings, people will not listen to that. And it's interesting to me because the thing about audio is that it existed for several fucking decades. Maybe even a century, right? When was radio? I don't remember. But for several decades, we had these compelling...
Well over a century now,
Yeah.
Like we're hitting the century mark now.
Right, exactly. So like, we have been able to handle a world of radio. It was called NPR. That gave us compelling documentary without the narration of celebrities, right? So it's sort of like, we don't need, it's sort of, I also find it strange when you hear like a toothpaste commercial and you're like, is that John Krasinski's voice? Or you know what I mean? You're like, is anyone moved by John Krasinski? Like, he's great. I love John Krasinski, but like, you know what I mean?
But I hate it because it's like, it is also, we all do voiceover work. Yes. You're up, you're like, okay, I'm going to do this 30-second Ford spot or whatever. Oh, no, I'm not, because Alec Baldwin has to narrate this. Why do you have Alec Baldwin selling you Ford or whatever he's selling? Right. I don't know. I just know that that's the thing, is we're now being conditioned to, like, if I don't hear the celebrity, this product or this thing I'm listening to is not worth it. They couldn't even get John Krasinski.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because I've, listening to, there are a couple of the like legacy podcasts that have gone back. I think of Mark Maron,
right?
Like these podcasts that have been around, who were sort of in the trenches, doing it when no one was doing
like the early, the mid 2000s people or whatever. Yes,
exactly. And it is the sort of exponential growth curve of this last year and a half, when everyone realized there was money to be made, it's kind of insane. And speaking to the development process as well, one of the things I had a podcast a couple of years ago that was literally like me recording on my iPhone in my living room, publishing it through an RSS feed, like I'm not particularly tech savvy, but it was one step below like fishing line and broadcasting out from my bedroom.
Right.
And it was very like, I would mention it to people and people would be like, oh, I don't even know what a podcast is. I've never heard of it. Like, oh, I guess I do have that app on my phone. But now in these conversations with development, it's like the built into the contracts are, okay, and then we'll do a television deal, and then we'll do this movie, and then we'll do this, and we could go scripted, or we could do this. And it's like, it's crazy. It's like developing podcasting is just as competitive and intense as developing television.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll just say, and this is maybe like a little bit in the weeds, but like, I think some of this drama is known, has been covered in kind of trade stuff, is that one of the things that has happened is that if you're a part of a network and there's some celebrities on that network, the ad selling goes to the celebrity shows and not to the other shows. And so the way that like people are supposed to like, make a living from their podcast or whatever, like earn something from the labor of their podcast was through ads. And that became extremely difficult if you're competing with celebrities for ads, because obviously people want the celebrities to do their ads. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's been an issue at a lot of, podcast networks.
And isn't that also speaking to a little bit of this whole move toward we're no longer like creating shows or art, we're creating content. We are content creators. And the content that is most appreciated is the content that sells the most amount of ads for the least amount of money that they put into it.
Yeah.
And so the return on investment is automatically going to favor celebrities because celebrities are immediately going to have
a larger audience.
They have a larger audience. They're more likely to bring in other big name investors or people to like listen to and ad sales and ad buys and things like that. So as it moves more towards that, that's the real problem is like everything is moving towards benefiting the big corporations that are buying up all these small little boutique they're very few. I mean, you look where you are now. Like, you have, this is that startup energy of podcasting from years ago is almost gone. Everything is as professional as any network now. And the rough around the edge, we're losing some of like the rough around the edges. We're losing some of that, like, I'm just going to start a podcast because I can start it anywhere. And if it's good, people will listen to it. Now, it almost has to come out of the gate with, like, being well-developed and researched and marketed.
Yeah, you need to, Obama has to be on every podcast. I'll
take him.
Yeah, like I'm developing a podcast about like sci-fi movies and doing spoilers on every sci-fi movie, and Obama's attached. You know what I mean? It like has to literally be, and it's
and we welcome the Obamas.
And I absolutely anytime. Please, I'm here
anytime.
for you. But it is ridiculous, and I think also. With celebrities, the thing is like they all kind of want to interview each other, and that's fine. But I would also suggest doing other things with each other. Like, can you talk about something else?
Like sex things? Are you pitching a celebrity sex podcast?
And I would subscribe.
For example, can we? Yes, I'd like to innovate in the celebrity podcasting world. More into sex, also more into oranges or anything. Just like a produce podcast hosted by a celebrity would be interesting. No, but I mean, I think the just like the sameness of the format that they choose is, I think, can be a little snooze fest. You know what I mean?
Right.
But not that it matters because again, like if I think that format is like overdone by celebrities because. Literally, I think I saw a headline that said Smartless was renewing its contract for like $20 million or something, and that's a podcast with Sean Hayes, Jason Bateman, and Will Arnett, and it's really fun, and they're so fucking fun, right? But $20 million. That is... I mean, it's a lot like what I make here at Fake the Nation. Kidding! I have a Patreon, folks. What?
Think about the fans who are like, oh, I want to talk about, like, I just want to get my friends together and we're going to talk about Will and Grace. And then the actual cast of Will and Grace is like, we're going to do a podcast talking about Will and Grace.
Right.
Which one are you going to listen to? I don't need to talk about these people that just love the show. I'm going to listen to the actual cast of the show.
Oh Oh my God.
But I think that's where I'll circle back to my original point is that I want both. Like I want to hear because I think there is an element of like the inside, just in that fantastic example, because I happen to be a Will and Grace fanatic and happen to have watched every single episode at least 20 times since my childhood. I actually had a box. This is a complete tangent, but I had a box set of the Will and Grace seasons that I got for my birthday when I came out. Thanks, Kira, my best friend who bought those for me. But I sort of see like the one pro of this moment of all these people adding in is like, in that example, we get to have the behind the scenes. We get to have the like, oh, and remember that time when we couldn't remember our lines and all the stuff that we don't get. Right. But I also get to have the feeling of there is still that separation.
Right, the fandom feeling. Yeah.
And like sitting around talking with my friends about the show is a different experience than listening to Sean Hayes talk about being on set and shooting it. And so that's my one pro for this moment is that I get to have more. Yeah. But also, being as people who do podcasting is really hard. And I just don't see these people continuing.
Like sticking with it. I also see that.
Of the publicists being like, you need to get a Twitter, you need to get an Instagram.
Right. You need to get a podcast. Yeah, totally.
You need to become a celebrity.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of it's going to fall away now that things are opening back up.
And they're like, I'm sorry, I have to go like shoot in Milan for 3 months. I can't keep my podcast going,
Right.
Totally.
Right. And you promised me that I was going to make $20 million when I sold this to Spotify and no one's buying it because I'm not A-list, right? Like, I think there's all the like buzziness and the excitement of those big deals make all the rest of the people who get into it think like, oh, all I have to do is press record and I'll make $20 million.
Right. Like, folks, for anyone who's listening, you will not get $20 million. Just so you're clear. All right, folks, let me know what you think. Oh, I wanted to share with you guys this one thing, which I may have mentioned on the show before, but if I haven't, I was once like one of the contenders for a hosting job for a podcast. And it was down to me and I don't know, a couple of other people or whatever. Or maybe it was between me and just this one other person. And anyways, I went through a few interviews, met a bunch of people, big podcasting network, whatever. And finally the job went to Jerry Springer. So,
okay.
Was he even in the mix? Was he even in the mix at that time, though?
In my mind, they were like, God, when you want a podcast host, it's either Negin Farsad or Jerry Springer are the first two people that come to mind. Like they're always in contention.
In a direction, Negin.
We're going in a radically different direction, Negin. All right, folks, you guys let me know what you think. Are celebrities ruining podcasts for you, or do you love all the celebrity podcasts? I don't know. Let me know. Give me some recs. I'll take them. Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll talk about Texas. Oh my God, you guys. Today's show has also been sponsored by Feals. That's Feals. And I'm actually really excited to talk about this because Feals is a premium CBD that'll help you keep your head clear and feel your best. It's hassle-free. It's delivered directly to your door. But I had such a great experience using Feals. This one day, I kind of fell off the wagon with the running and the exercising for just like 2 weeks. I feel bad about it. But I started back up. And I got just like the worst aches and pains, of course, as would happen. They have a little chart that tells you like how much you should take if you're experiencing aches and pains. I took it and it worked. Like it got rid of my aches and pains and I felt so good about it. CBD naturally helps stress, anxiety, pain, and sleeplessness. There's no hangover or addiction. And I can tell you, there was no side effects. I just felt better. Place a few drops of Feals under your tongue and feel the difference within minutes. The thing to remember about CBD is that finding your right dose is important and everyone's dose is different. In fact, Feals offers a free CBD hotline to help guide your personal experience so that you find your perfect dose. The Feels customer service team is dedicated to making sure you get the best use of your CBD. And also, like I mentioned, they have this like really great chart that helps you figure out like what you want to take it for. Is it for aches and pains? Is it for clarity of mind? Is it for sleeplessness? And then it kind of helps you figure out the dosage that way. Joining the Feels monthly membership makes your self-care easy. You'll save money on every order and you can pause or cancel anytime. Start feeling better with Feels. Become a member today by going to feels.com/fakethenation and you'll get 50% off your first order with free shipping. Guys, that's such a good deal. That's feels.com, FEALS.com/fakethenation to become a member and get 50% automatically taken off your first order with free shipping. Feels.com/fakethenation. I had such a delightful time with it. I think you will too. This summer, get the most out of your travels abroad by learning the language of your destination with Babbel, the #1 selling language learning app. From ordering in restaurants or asking for directions to gaining a deeper understanding of the culture, Babbel makes the whole process of learning a new language addictively fun and easy with bite-sized lessons you can actually use in the real world. Babbel is a can't-miss travel essential. And folks, I actually have a fun thing to say about Babbel. Me and my mom both downloaded Babbel because we're both trying to learn Spanish. And we did some lessons together, and me and my mom were like, hola, hola, ¿cómo está? Soy tu vecina. So anyways, it's early days, folks, but I felt really good about having those little interactions with my mom in Spanish and it's actually a really fun thing to do with a parent like that. So anyways, I highly recommend it, but also eventually I need to be able to speak the whole language so I could go places and just like effortlessly have conversations. That's my dream. Babbel's 15-minute lessons make it the perfect way to learn a new language on the go. Unlike the infamous language classes you took in high school, Babbel designs their courses with practical real-world conversations in mind, things you'll get to use in everyday life. Their teaching method has been scientifically proven to be effective. Plus, Babbel's speech recognition technology helps you to improve your pronunciation and accent. Which, by the way, listeners, how is my accent? I don't know. I'm embarrassed. So right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babbel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. That's 6 months for the price of 3. Just go to Babbel.com and use the promo code FAKETHENATION. That's Babbel, BABBEL.com. Use the promo FAKETHENATION and you'll get 3 months free. I highly recommend it. Again, I'm doing it right now. Babbel.com. And the promo code is... And we are back, and we're ready for topic number 2. On Monday, a group of Democratic legislators fled Texas. This is some old school shit. They literally fled the state in order to stop the GOP from voting on a measure that would restrict voting. Why is this happening? I guess that's just my first question. What is the...
We love a strike. We love a strike moment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we love drama.
We sure do.
Who doesn't love a dramatic walkout?
It's so dramatic. It's also the second time they've done that in this year. So they're trying to if they're denying the House a quorum. So without a quorum of representatives, they can't actually hold the vote. And they fled actually to Washington, D.C. Because I guess they thought, going to D.C. would make it more of a national issue. They would get more press attention, which they did. But also because Governor Abbott said he would arrest them, so they had to leave the state so that arrest, that they couldn't be arrested across state lines. So I thought that was crazy. Benari, do you think this is like a politically savvy move? I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
I think this was their last move left. And
this is their only move. Okay.
This was the only move because there was no more negotiation. Look, we're in I can't overstate this enough. We're in a crisis point. This wasn't just legislation about, Republicans have walked out over climate change. Both sides of the aisle have done political maneuvering like this. This is literally about voting rights. This is literally about Texas. In this law is a provision to allow judges, based on complaints, to just overturn an election and install someone. This is fundamentally anti-democratic legislation that not only restricts voting rights, but but radically changes the way elections will be run in the state of Texas. And Texas isn't the only state doing this. And Texas is just the boldest state doing this. But we've seen the voting restriction laws in, I think, 18 states. We've seen what's happened in Georgia. We've seen what's happening in a lot of these red states, specifically with Republican legislatures, who have just decided, our future is not in winning over the popular vote. Our future, right. We don't have the numbers. We don't have the policies to win over, which is usually how people got elected, is we have popular policies, so people vote for us. They've just decided we don't have that. The only way we can win is by we're in power now. We're going to change the rules, restrict the rules, and prevent more people from voting, or as many people as voting as possible, and consolidate our power. And Democrats have walked out in Texas to bring light to this of like, hey, this is a serious fucking issue right now. I know that you love the fucking filibuster, but we need federal legislation because the states are going to fuck us.
And I want to point out, so when they did walk out before, right, on exactly this bill, and and because they walked out, they managed to get another version of the bill that was a little bit less heinous, though still heinous. And by the way, for those of you who don't know why this is heinous, the bill wants to outlaw 24-hour polling places. They want to ban ballot drop boxes. They want to empower partisan poll watchers. Anyways, among the reasons why it's heinous.
But
I know, it's insane. But
restricts Sunday voting, I think, too.
Right.
Yes.
So one of the things that they managed to get rid of was they were going to get rid of early voting on Sundays, and Republicans agreed to remove that. So the earlier version of the bill, that's because the Democrats walked out, and again, that just, so people know, like, Sunday is the day that traditionally used by African American voters. And the earlier version would have made it easier for judges to overturn elections. So they got rid of those like real shitty components of the bill. So walking out actually did help make the bill a little less horrible. But it's just weird, Clark, right? Because like, it's not like we don't want to. It's hard. I'm like, oh, let's compromise some more. But like the compromise is like, let people vote. I mean, the compromise is like, let's do exactly the opposite of any of these bills. You know what I mean?
Right. This is the problem with politics at the moment, like everything being so charged that like even the context of compromise requires two rational sides and two sides that have like any common ground or like one that isn't a side specifically targeting Black voters, there's no compromising when this is one of the things that I've read a lot about over this past year in sort of the conversations we've been having about racial justice and sort of like the way we contextualize politics and identity in America in general, how the Overton window has shifted so far to the right, wherein in order to have a conversation about the spectrum, you first have to identify both sides of that spectrum. And when one side is all the way over in alt-right territory or like specifically white supremacist territory, there is no compromise with people who are like, okay, well, we don't want a white supremacist nation. And they're like, okay, but we do. So it's like, how do you, there's the common ground.
Right, like you're like, the Overton window is essentially that that having a white supremacist country is now in the conversation where before it just like wasn't in the that is the problem. It's not two rational sides of the argument. Like it, and again, like I know we've always been fundamentally fucked up on certain levels, but it wasn't during the Reagan administration. The other side was like, but we don't like taxes, right? So it's like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, that makes sense.
We're not talking about like business deregulation here.
Yeah,
we're not talking about like we are talking about fundamentally one side is denying half the country's humanity.
So it went from or forgetting that.
Where's the compromise there?
Yeah, if you don't want to even bring race into the conversation, you could just say it's about one side wanting to just completely get rid of actual democracy, like how democracy functions, you know? And then you're like, but that's, can you guys go back to that thing with deregulation? Because that was way more like doable, you know? I also want to point out that in 2003, the Texas legislators also walked out, left the state. A lot of them went to New Mexico and Oklahoma, and this was over gerrymandering. And there was this fun little detail is that it lasted for a long time, but this one senator broke ranks and came back, and a lot of the senators were complaining that they didn't pack enough clothes, you know? And then also the GOP in Texas had threatened to strip Democrats of their parking spaces and tow their cars. So anyways, things got ridiculous, but I just love the idea that like whether or not you packed enough clothes got involved in democracy in 2003. It's just a fun detail.
This is my favorite part of the story, though, because as high as the stakes are, you can never get past petty office politics.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
totally.
Sharon, I will tow your car. Okay. You know, like you can imagine that back and forth of like, you know, I've had those conversations with my coworkers in the past, and it's nice to see that this happens at the highest levels of government.
No, exactly. It comes because they're people, right? People will respond. You know, I'm going to tell you something. People will respond to a pizza party. You know, like free pizza is something I bet you there have been some shit that has gone down in a good way because pizza was involved. You know what I mean? Like because they're people. They're people. Like they can be plied with food and drink and threats of you know their parking spaces. It's all you know. Shifting gears a little bit. So Biden is on tour right now. Our president, he's on tour right now, giving speeches, trying to explain and inspire about infrastructure and about all the shit he's trying to do. But he just gave a speech in Illinois the other day, and it was a 31-minute speech. And literally after the speech, he was like, look, I know that was a boring speech. He literally used the word boring about his own speech. So my question is like, does Biden have a boring problem, or is it a boring advantage? What do you think?
I was thinking about this last night. It's something that I've been thinking about since the moment he took the stage in front of all of those, what was it, Jeeps? The red, white, and blue Jeep in the parking lot. Yeah. And because I remember like the excitement and all of the lead up to it, and what a cathartic emotional experience it was to elect him. And I sit down and he starts speaking, and about 30 seconds into the speech, I was thinking about my laundry and my grocery, and I was like, whoa, this is a brand new feeling. Right. It was a familiar feeling, one from before when I had to like actively pay attention to speeches by politicians, but it was such a refreshing feeling, because I think I will say, I think there are dangers to both, but at least being lulled into complacency is better for my heart than like stress and anxiety and waking up every day being like, is the world literally on fire because of him? You know, like all of those things. Now there's that added, I have to get myself up out of bed figuratively. I have to like remind myself to tap in because I'm sort of like calm. But it's definitely a refreshing place to be compared to these last 4 years.
Benari, is boring strategery, or should they do more?
Look, long-time Fake the Nation listeners know that my pitch for Biden way back when was that this guy is not going to make you march in the streets. This guy is going to get in there. He knows how government works. It's not exciting. It's not flashy. It's not sexy. But you know someone's there who knows how to do it, and you don't have to think about it. You get on with your life. And I think that there's also something that is fundamentally beautiful about this moment of, we're fighting fascism, right? And we're fighting the cult of personality. And part of the problem, look, Plato, we go back to Plato. Plato did not believe that democracy could work, because Plato felt that there was always going to be some demagogue that can take over the levers of power and get and get the masses all fired up, and then you have tyranny. Then they just overthrow democracy on their own. And with the steady, boring hand of Joe Biden, it's bureaucratic. It's just the engines of the system moving, and then we as the people who actually have the real power, we have to say, oh, if I want to get this done, I have to go do this, this, and this, or I have to now. I'm not waiting for someone to fix this for me. I'm not waiting for this flashy figurehead to solve all our problems. Nobody expects Biden to come in and revolutionize and radically change the system like they did Obama. Right? And a lot of the disappointment in Obama was that, oh, Obama came in and we had hope and change, and everyone expected Obama had powers, magic powers that he didn't have.
Right.
Because that's not how government works and democracy works. And so with someone like Biden, we actually have, I think, a better idea of how democracy actually works and the way in which we can empower ourselves and work within a system that at least has an adult in charge, someone who knows and believes that this system can work.
Right, and the thing is, the system is about spreadsheets and filing systems. You know what I mean?
Literally.
That's why these fucking speeches are boring, because that is, like, I speak as someone who, when I was a policy person, working for the Campaign Finance Board in New York City, bless their hearts, campaign finance is one of these things, you know, people talk about it, we should get money out of politics, we need a campaign finance program. New York City has that campaign finance program. It is like an example for the entire country. When they talk about campaign finance reform, New York's is the one they refer to, right? It is so exciting that we have it here. It's so meaningful. It's gotten so many people to be able to run for office. Yeah. That said, I was there, and you know who was with me? My fellow nerds. And you know what we did every day? Spreadsheets. That's what we did every day, you know? And that's the thing. It's like, it's not glamorous work. It's just, it's tough, detailed, sometimes boring fucking work, and it's hard to make a speech out of that, and he is definitely not the best guy to speechify, you know? It's like you want to get Alec Baldwin in there. You want to get one of these podcasters in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Stop podcasting. Go make some really dramatic speeches about trade agreements. You know what I mean? And then let's see how fucking good you are. So anyways, all right, folks, let me know. Does Biden have a boring problem or a boring advantage? And now we shall move on to our final topic for the day. Topic number 3. So we read a piece in the New York Times called "There's a Specific Kind of Joy We've Been Missing" by Adam Grant. And in it, he talks about the lack of collective effervescence, which is an unfortunate term that immediately makes me think of orgies. But that's not actually what he's talking about. He's talking about that moment when you're in a group, a very large group, like a concert hall or a stadium, or even like a yoga class or whatever, and you experience like a big, like a thing together. You just experience a thing together. During the pandemic, we didn't get to have those, and now, theoretically, we can have. You guys miss this? Like, Clark, did you at any point during the pandemic realize that you missed this? And have you been doing it?
I love that he put a name to it, because it's something that's always been really important to me. I love live performance, both as an audience member and as a performer. And it's something you can't sort of manufacture that feeling in any other way. It's very organic. And it's generally one of the things that I've missed most about cities like New York, where people are you have moments of collective effervescence, I'll use his term, even on the subway. Just like walking down the street, there are moments where you tap into that universal oneness of being a member of a community. And it's something that's always been really important to me. It's something that in LA, I found one has to build consciously. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of was probably already a little bit depleted in my collective effervescence. But I sort of, in this past year, I went too far to the isolation side. I got a little bit too comfortable alone in my house. And I think I'm now I'm still a little wary. I mean, I'm vaccinated, of course, but I'm still a little like nervous around people. And so I've not yet experienced it in this new post-vaccination world.
Can I also just a correction there? The concept was coined by Emile Durkheim in like around World War I. Just so we give credit where credit is due on the creation of random terms like this. But
apologies, Emile.
But Nari, so there's research actually that I didn't know if you found surprising. One of the things they pointed out in the article is that people laugh 5 times as often when they're with others than when they're alone. That emotions are basically inherently social. Does that ring true for you?
I mean, I find all research surprising, but but this one, no, this one rings true because I do comedy clubs, and that there is, and having. I've just re-entered the world of doing comedy in person again. And I have to say, one, the people who are coming out to shows want to fucking be there. They want to have a good time. They do not take this social experience for granted. And I think maybe there's a little bit of that going into it pre-pandemic of like, oh, we can just be out and about. Now people go out and they're like, I'm going to enjoy myself because this experience might not last. But we also know, like you play to crowds, the crowd has a personality as a crowd.
Oh yeah.
And you get people laughing and you get people going, that builds on itself. And if you start on the wrong foot or you start antagonistic, that becomes the personality. Anything can throw off a show. The wrong lighting, people aren't drinking enough, the air conditioning's not working. All these little things affect our behavior in these moments. And I think we're much more aware now of like how much that affects us socially, but how social we are just as beings living in the world. Like there's an element that we need
Yeah, and you know what? You're
social
not,
animals.
Again, also, more research that you'll find surprising. The phenomenon of like laughter being contagious or whatever, literally it's called emotional contagion. And they found that, in almost all their studies, people don't realize that they're being affected by other people's emotions. And so one thing, Clark, I'm wondering from your year of sort of like, because I didn't have the experience of retreating inward. I had the experience of like, I'm doubling down on going outside and trying to get what I can. So I didn't get it. So and by the way, again, research found that 3/4 of people before COVID, 3/4 of people experience collective effervescence at least once a week, and almost a third experienced it at least once a day. And I think I'm one of that third that experienced it at least once a day. So the thing is that emotional contagion also happens in happiness stuff, right? Like people are laughing, kind of makes you laugh. That I think we've all experienced. We've all been at a show where that happens, or we've all been in a movie theater where people are laughing at it, and then you watch that same movie alone and you're not you know what I mean? Like you're not laughing. So that kind of totally makes sense. But there's something that happened during the pandemic, which is crazy to me, but totally makes sense, is that the science of contagion, and this is from the article, suggests that negative emotions we feel from video like conference call, Zoom call overuse could be partially driven by hours of communicating with people who are also sad, stressed, lonely, or tired. So that you got the emotion, you may have been having a good day, but you got on a Zoom call and other people were like, because most people were like, during the pandemic. And so it led to this collective, like, sad feeling.
Draining.
Draining.
Yeah.
Do you feel like does that ring true for you and how you experienced the pandemic?
Yeah. I mean, I will say, Negin, I'm used to that because I'm an actor in Los Angeles. And so that's just like our stasis. Everyone's like, yeah, life could be so much better. And you're always just sort of being dragged down.
Right.
So I did feel that a lot. And I also felt drained, especially by like the Zoom element of it and having to like connect emotionally through the screen with loved ones, with family members, for wedding, like the fact that everything happened in the same box, whether it was a funeral, a wedding, a birthday, a happy hour, a work call. And that was really hard to sort of wrap my head around at first. But I also think one of the reasons why it was such a good moment, the way that I was able to use it to my advantage, rather, is I feel like as I get older, I don't know what the percentage is, but I feel like I'm drifting more towards introvert than extrovert. And I felt like I used to be more towards extrovert when I was in like high school. I don't know. Now I find myself recharging a lot more alone and wanting to read or wanting to, those simple pleasures of like having a cup of tea, sitting alone silently in my bedroom. Like that is heaven to me.
Yeah.
And so those moments were at first were recharging. And then it got to the point where, I just have to get up.
We all need balance.
Sure. I mean, this piece will tell you basically don't, recharge or whatever, but basically if you're going to be happy, it's going to be with people. But and it talked about introverts also thinking that they need a lot of alone time and not realizing that they're experiencing emotional contagion every day and that it's affecting them in a positive way. But before our brilliant producer, Julia, found this article and sent it to me, but before she even sent it to me, literally on Sunday, I was walking through the streets of New York, as I'm known to do, and I walked by multiple bars that had TV set up for the European Championship League or whatever that thing is. And it was like Italy versus somebody, England or whatever. And anyway, I had nothing to do. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't know what it was. But we walked by so many bars, and it was like tons of people were watching this game. And we would go from like place to place, just walking through Manhattan, right? And you see, you just walk through different neighborhoods and different bars and different, and I was like, oh my God, this is such a big game. Everybody is paying attention to this game. And my husband literally went, I'm glad they're all experiencing that together. He just said, I'm glad they're all experiencing that together. And then a day later, Julia sends this piece. I felt excited that all of these people were excitedly watching this one game that I didn't give a shit about. You know what I mean? But I suddenly was just like, that's so fun that people are having fun,
But think about like we had done that previously, right? Like Super Bowl parties.
Right, exactly.
Like big sporting events. There's people that like love sports all year long, but we decided socially, collectively as a group that like, you know what? If we all just do the Super Bowl, whether you care or not, it's most of the people, it's not even about the Super Bowl. It's just about like, I'm going to this place.
Gathering.
I'm going to have chips and dip.
Yes.
This is great. I love it.
And the halftime show.
Yeah, halftime show. And we're going to experience things and we're going to have our opinions and we're all sharing this at the same time, at the same moment.
Yes.
And anytime we can do that, I mean, it just makes us feel, that's how we connect to each other throughout humanity, I think.
Right.
Well, folks, let me know. Have you been experiencing?
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I know. Clark and I are doing a standing ovation and clapping. Folks, let me know what you think of collective effervescence. Have you been doing it? Remember, it was a term coined by Emil Durkheim during World War I. All right. That is the end of the show. I'm so glad you guys were here to collectively effervesce with me. Again, that sounds dirty, right?
It just
dirty.
Sounds so dirty. It definitely sounds like you're talking about orgies.
Please, right?
It's gonna catch on for that reason.
I may be talking about orgies. Doesn't matter. We don't know what happens behind the podcast wall. Folks.
But we know celebrities are doing it. That's all.
I would love for the people of Fake the Nation to be able to find you and all the work that you do. Benari Lee Poulton, where do they do that?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Benari Lee, BENARILEE.
And yes, definitely follow him. And if you get to see him live, he was just talking about performing in Los Angeles and in Long Beach. So just go see him. He's a fucking delight. Clark, where can they find you?
I'm at Mr. Clark Moore on all platforms, and my podcast is called Soul Bomb, wherever you get your podcast.
Oh my God. And you should absolutely be subscribing because I think his level of delightfulness on this podcast has just made that a clear mandate for all of us. Okay. And folks, you know where to find me and all of the things that we should not be looking at on social media. But I wanted to also point out that my new column for the Progressive Magazine has just dropped. It is called To Breed or Not Not to Breed, and it answers the question about whether or not you should have kids. So check out
what
that
we were
piece.
Talking about before we got on here.
Oh, exactly. We were talking about emotions, having emotions as a parent, and those emotions are horrible. But you should still have kids, maybe. I don't know. Read my column, and then you'll know. That's To Breed or Not to Breed in the Progressive. What I really want to do is thank all the people that make this show possible. That's our wonderful producer, Julia Linden. Sorry, what did I say? Producer? Our wonderful producer, Julia Linden. Our wonderful sound engineer, Stephanie Aguilar. All the wonderful people at HeadGum. I need to find another word for wonderful because they are wonderful, but it's like synonyms, Nagin. Synonyms. Our fantastic theme music was written by Gabi Alter. And I ask you this every time, but please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts because it helps people find the show. It really does. I'm not a celebrity, so I need stuff like that. Email us at fakethenation@headgum.com with any of the ideas you might have. Oh, and don't forget to join the Patreon. You get bonus content, you get bonus essays, you get t-shirts, mugs. There's so many levels of support. You can do that at patreon.com/Nagin Farsad. And folks, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.